Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be doing a deep dive today into something that I think you're probably already thinking about a lot in your own lives. It's the mind-body-spirit connection. So we've got this really awesome article here from Ninja Athlete and some other research that kind of helps us untangle how these three aspects of ourselves are actually intertwined. You know, it's easy to think of them as like separate things.
Right.
But what if they're more like a three-legged stool? You know, if one leg's a little weak, the whole thing's going to wobble.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, and it's definitely something we're going to be exploring deeper today. This deep dive should be interesting to you if you've been feeling a little out of balance lately, or if you're just curious about this whole holistic view of health and how that plays out in real life.
Okay, so let's unpack this thing. Let's start with the foundation. Physical health. Now it's more than just, you know, salads and gym memberships. The Ninja Athlete article points out that it's really the baseline for everything else.
Right, and it's about providing your body with what it needs to function in the best way possible. And that includes the obvious things like nutrition and exercise, but it also means things like sleep and managing stress and avoiding things that are harmful to you.
Yeah, and there's this really cool point in the Ninja Athlete article that I never really thought about before. It says that there are all these studies showing that exercise can actually help combat depression and anxiety. And I mean, we all know that working out releases endorphins and stuff, and you know, you have those mood boosting effects.
Yeah.
But to think that it could actually tackle those serious mental health issues is pretty amazing.
Well, the interesting thing is the way that it works. When you exercise, your brain is releasing these neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which are actually the key players when it comes to regulating your mood. It's basically like giving your brain a natural mood boost.
So it's not just about feeling good in the moment. There are actual chemical changes that are happening in your brain.
Exactly. And that's why exercise is often recommended as part of a holistic treatment plan. For depression and anxiety.
You know, I've definitely noticed that when I'm feeling kind of stressed or down, a good workout can really shift my perspective. Have you experienced that?
Oh, absolutely. Even a short walk can make a difference. It gets your blood pumping, you know, it releases those feel-good chemicals, and it helps to clear out the cobwebs in your mind.
Yeah. The Ninja Athlete article also talks about how our physical bodies can be seen as vessels for our spiritual selves.
Yeah.
And they use yoga as an example of this, how it kind of bridges the physical and the spiritual. It's not just about stretching, you know. It's about connecting with something deeper within yourself.
Yoga is really a fascinating example because it combines physical postures with breath work and mindfulness. And in a lot of traditions, yoga is considered a spiritual practice. It's a path towards, you know, self-realization. So it's not just about improving your flexibility or your strength. It's about aligning your body and your mind and your spirit.
That makes me think about how important breath work is in so many spiritual traditions. It's like this tangible link between our physical and our spiritual selves.
Absolutely. And when you bring awareness to your breath, you can actually influence your nervous system.
Yes.
Calm your mind and reduce stress.
So we got this foundation of physical health, but then there's this control center, you know, mental health.
Right. This is where we get into the area of emotions and thoughts and beliefs. It's about how we process information, how we manage stress, and how we navigate our relationships.
And the Ninja Athlete article points out that our brains, our organs too, they need care and attention, just like our hearts or lungs. It seems so obvious. But I forget that sometimes. Have you ever felt that mental exhaustion after a bad night's sleep? It's like your brain's just saying, hey, I need a break.
Oh, absolutely. Sleep deprivation can impair your brain function.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much harder to focus and make decisions and regulate your emotions. It's a really clear example of how our physical state, in this case, lack of sleep, directly impacts our mental well-being.
That's a great point. And speaking of connections, how does spirituality play into this mental health picture?
Well, our beliefs and values, which are often rooted in our spirituality, really shape our mental state. If we believe we're worthy of love and belonging, for example, that's going to influence our emotions and our behaviors.
So even something as abstract as spirituality can have a really tangible impact on our mental well-being.
Absolutely. And Ninja's Athlete highlights meditation as a spiritual practice that can lead to mental clarity and peace.
Yeah, I've tried meditation, and sometimes it is really hard to quiet my mind. Like, what's actually happening in the brain when we meditate?
Research shows that regular meditation can actually change the structure of your brain, strengthening areas that are associated with attention and emotional regulation and self-awareness. It's kind of like giving your brain a workout. But instead of building muscles, you're building mental resilience and focus.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How these practices that have been around for centuries are now being backed by science. really shows that our ancestors were onto something with that mind-body-spirit connection, right? Speaking of things that have been around for centuries, what about spiritual health? The Ninja Athlete article makes a point of saying it's not just about religion.
Exactly. It's about having a deeper understanding of yourself and your purpose, and your connection to something bigger than yourself. It could involve exploring your values, connecting with nature, or engaging in practices that help you tap into a sense of transcendence.
But here's what I find really intriguing. Spiritual practices can influence our physical health too. The article mentions fasting, which can be a spiritual practice in a lot of traditions, but it also has detoxifying benefits for the body.
Fasting is a great example of how a practice can have benefits on multiple levels. From a spiritual perspective, it can be a way to cultivate discipline and self-awareness, and a deeper connection to something beyond the material world. And from a physical perspective, research suggests that fasting can help regulate blood sugar, reduce inflammation, and even promote cellular repair.
It's like these ancient practices were intuitively tapping into this interconnectedness, long before we had the scientific evidence to back it up.
Exactly. And the more we learn about the mind-body-spirit connection, the more we realize that these different dimensions of ourselves are not separate entities. They're intricately woven together.
So it's like this constant dance between our physical, mental, and spiritual selves.
That's a great way to put it. When one aspect of ourselves suffers, the others feel the impact. But when one thrives, the others are uplifted as well. It's this beautiful ripple effect.
Okay, so we've laid out these three pillars of well-being: physical, mental, and spiritual health. But I think what's really important for our listeners is understanding how to practically apply this knowledge.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just intellectually grasp the concept of interconnectedness. We need to actually embody it in our daily lives.
So where do we start?
I think a great starting point is to cultivate awareness. Pay attention to how your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are impacting your physical health.
For example, if I notice that I'm feeling stressed and reaching for sugary snacks, that's a clue that my mental state is influencing my physical choices.
Exactly. And once you become aware of those patterns, you can start to make conscious choices to interrupt them.
Maybe instead of reaching for that bag of chips when I'm stressed, I take a few deep breaths and go for a walk instead.
That's a great example. It's about finding healthier coping mechanisms that support your overall well-being. And it's also about recognizing that small changes can make a big difference over time.
Speaking of small changes, what are some other simple but powerful practices that people can incorporate into their daily lives?
One that I highly recommend is mindfulness. It's about bringing your attention to the present moment without judgment.
So instead of constantly dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, we're focusing on what's happening right here, right now.
Exactly. And you can practice mindfulness in any activity, whether you're eating, walking, or even just washing the dishes.
I've heard that mindfulness can be really helpful for managing stress. Is that true?
Absolutely. When we're mindful, we're not getting swept away by our thoughts and emotions. We're creating space between ourselves and our reactions, which gives us more choice in how we respond to challenges.
That sounds really helpful, especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with stimuli.
It is, and the great thing about mindfulness is that it doesn't require any special equipment or a lot of time. You can literally practice it anywhere, anytime.
Okay, so mindfulness is one practice. What else can we do to nurture this mind-body-spirit connection?
Another powerful practice is gratitude.
Oh, I've heard a lot about gratitude lately. What's so great about it?
Taking time each day to appreciate the good things in our lives, no matter how small, can have a profound impact on our well-being. It shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already have, which can boost our mood, reduce stress, and increase our overall sense of happiness and contentment.
So it's about training our minds to focus on the positive rather than the negative.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You can simply take a few minutes each day to reflect on things you're grateful for, or you can keep a gratitude journal.
I like the idea of a gratitude journal.
Yeah.
It seems like a tangible way to track your progress and really cultivate that sense of appreciation.
It is, and even on those days when you're feeling down, challenging yourself to find things to be grateful for can actually shift your perspective and improve your mood.
You know, it's amazing how this idea of the mind-body-spirit connection, it keeps popping up throughout history, like it's this ancient wisdom that we're rediscovering.
Right. Ancient cultures all over the world have always recognized this connection, you know? Like in traditional Chinese medicine, they have the concept of qi, this vital life force energy that flows through the body. Or Ayurveda, the ancient Indian system of medicine, talks about balancing the three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, which represent different energies that govern our physical and mental processes.
So they were already acknowledging back then that our health is about way more than just the physical body. It's about this balance of different energies inside of us.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that science is now validating these ancient ideas. We're learning more and more about how our thoughts and emotions and beliefs actually have a real impact on our physical health.
Yeah, like how chronic stress can weaken the immune system, increase inflammation, and even contribute to chronic diseases. It's mind-blowing that our mental state can have such a direct impact on our physical well-being.
It really highlights the importance of managing stress and cultivating inner peace. But it goes beyond just managing stress. Cultivating positive emotions like joy, gratitude, and love is also crucial.
Well, I've read about that. Like those positive emotions can actually boost our immune system and improve our cardiovascular health. So it's not just about avoiding the negative, it's about actively cultivating the positive. And that's where practices like mindfulness and meditation and gratitude come in. They help us shift our focus, from what's wrong to what's right.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective can have a huge impact on our overall well-being.
Okay, so ancient wisdom and modern science both point to this interconnectedness. What are the practical takeaways for our listeners? How do we actually apply this to our everyday lives?
Well, one key takeaway is the need for a more holistic approach to healthcare. It's about going beyond just treating symptoms and addressing the root causes of illness. We need to consider the mental, emotional, and even spiritual factors that might be involved.
So instead of just prescribing medication for, say, chronic fatigue, we need to explore if underlying stress or anxiety, or even a lack of purpose, might be contributing to the problem. It's a much more well-rounded approach.
Exactly. It's about taking a more integrative and personalized approach to healthcare. Another important thing is empowering people to take an active role in their own health. We can't just passively follow doctors' orders. We need to educate ourselves about our bodies and minds and make conscious choices that support our well-being.
It's about becoming our own health advocates and really owning our healing journey. That's such an empowering message because it reminds us that we have so much more control over our health than we might realize.
Absolutely. It's a message that can completely change how we think about health and well-being.
Well, I think this deep dive into the mind-body-spirit connection has been incredibly insightful. We've explored ancient wisdom, modern science, and the practical implications for our lives.
It's been a really fascinating exploration.
As we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. The journey to holistic well-being, it's a lifelong adventure. There will be ups and downs, twists and turns along the way. But the most important thing is to keep learning, keep growing, and keep nurturing all aspects of yourself.
Well said. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. There are so many resources out there to support you. And you have the power within you to create a life filled with health, happiness, and fulfillment.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration. Until then, take care of yourselves, mind, body, and spirit.